The mountain did not roar, it sighed. From its black throat, a tremor unfurled across the valley, subtle as the first breath of winter. Snow powdered the ridges, sliding loose, as though Erebor itself had stirred in its sleep. The villagers of Lake Town, still clutching their children and salvaging what little they had from fire, turned their faces upward in silence. They had already buried one terror in the water, a dragon whose death still echoed in smoke, and yet the mountainside chilled them more than flame ever had. Deep inside, beneath vaults carved before memory, Thorin Oakenshield stood alone. The torch in his hand burned small against walls plated in gold. Mountains of coins gleamed like a sunrise frozen in metal, and his shadow quivered against them as if afraid to touch. He had fought for this, bled for this, lost for this, and now it was his. His. But possession is not peace. His boots echoed too loudly on the stone, and each echo asked the same question: "What kind of king are you?" Behind him, voices murmured. Dwarves, loyal kin who had followed through exile, hunger, and dragonfire, celebrated, their laughter bouncing through the chambers like hammers striking anvils. Yet Thorin heard not joy but dissonance. Every cheer sounded like a demand, every oath like a claim. Their eyes gleamed with reflected treasure, and he wondered if they looked at him or at the gold that framed him. Bilbo Baggins lingered at the edge of the hall, small and quiet, as if afraid to disturb the grandeur. He had never grown used to the weight of these walls. To him, gold had always been something worn as a button or tucked in a teapot, not piled high enough to drown in. The Hobbit's gaze kept straying to Thorin's face rather than the hoard, and that was why the king both trusted and feared him most. Bilbo's eyes saw too much. Outside the mountain, the valleys smoldered. Bard the bowman waded through ash and ruin, his bow broken across his back, his hands raw from dragging bodies out of collapsed beams. Lake Town was not a town anymore, it was a raft of grief, tethered by willpower and smoke. Yet when his children clung to him, he stood straighter. His people, desperate, already looked at him as if he carried a crown. Bard did not want it. Leadership was a wound, and he was bleeding fast. Farther still, among trees silvered by frost, King Thranduil of the woodland realm rode with his guard. His elk's hooves whispered across the frozen earth, silent as disdain. His eyes did not seek the wounded in Lake Town, they sought the mountain, bright against the horizon. He had come for what he believed his, for jewels that once caught moonlight like water. But in his silence was something colder, not greed, but the memory of a loss never healed. The stage was set, though no one named it. Men struggled in ashes, elves marched with quiet intent, and dwarves sank deeper into gold-lit halls. The air itself seemed brittle, as though a single wrong word could shatter peace into 1,000 swords. Bilbo broke that silence first. He shuffled closer to Thorin, his voice awkward yet steady. "It feels different now, doesn't it? Having it, all of it." Thorin did not turn, only stared into the sea of treasure. His knuckles whitened on the torch. "It does not feel enough." The words fell heavy, and Bilbo's heart clenched. He thought of home, of kettle whistles, of books stacked in comfort, of a garden that asked for nothing but care. He thought of how far he was from it, and how close Thorin was to losing his. Above them, the wind changed. Crows broke from the tree-line in black spirals. Somewhere beyond the hills, unseen feet moved in rhythm, an army already marching toward their folly. But in this moment, all the danger lay not in armies or dragons, but in the shadow stretching across Thorin's face as he stared into the gold. The mountain had sighed because it knew, kingdoms do not fall to enemies first. They fall to themselves. The mountain no longer sighed, it listened. Every shout, every footfall, every clash of pride rang through its stone ribs, as if Erebor itself weighed the words. Thorin held council in the king's hall, though the word council felt misplaced. He sat upon the throne carved from black stone, the torchlight painting his face in half-shadows. Before him, his kin gathered, Balin with his lined brow of caution, Dwalin with arms folded in silent vigilance, and younger dwarves whose eyes gleamed with both loyalty and hunger. Balin was the first to speak. "The people of Lake Town suffer. Their homes burn while we count our fortune. If Erebor is to be more than a tomb of gold, We must act with honor. Aid them. Thorin's fingers curled around the armrest. Aid them? With what coin? Grain we do not have? This kingdom is not yet reborn, and already hands reach for it. His voice was low, but it struck the air like iron on anvil. Dwalin shifted, his voice steady but firmer than Balin's. They bled when we fought Smog. Bard slew the dragon, not us. Do we not owe them? For a moment, silence. The golden light of the treasure piles seeped into Thorin's eyes, sharpening his gaze. What we owe is to our own. We reclaim Erebor first. Others may wait their turn. Bilbo, who had lingered near the edges of the chamber, felt his chest tighten. The words were not cruel in tone, but they were thinner, as if scraped raw of warmth. He looked at Thorin and saw not the weary leader who had once shared bread and laughter on the road, but a man whose heart was already barricading itself behind walls of coin. Outside the mountain, smoke from Lake Town carried far, black plumes twisting against the pale winter sky. Bard walked the ruined docks, his boots splashing through half-frozen water. Children clung to his cloak, widows pressed hands against his sleeves. His name rose on their lips like a plea. "We cannot stay here," one woman begged, holding her son close. "We will starve before the snows melt." Bard swallowed hard. Leadership had been thrust upon him, unwanted yet undeniable. He raised his voice, clear and firm, though sorrow flickered in every syllable. "We will rebuild. The mountain owes us restitution. We will claim it, not as beggars, but as those who have paid with fire and blood." A cheer rippled through the ragged crowd, though Bard felt no triumph. His gaze lifted to Erebor, the crown of snow and stone, and he wondered what kind of king waited inside. In the forest, Thranduil's march was a quiet procession. No banners waved, no trumpets sang. The elves advanced like a river beneath moonlight. At their head, the woodland king rode with his gaze fixed on the mountain. His soldiers whispered of vengeance for dragonfire that had once scarred their woods, of treasures promised and denied. Yet Thranduil's silence cloaked his true desire, a jewel, cold and perfect, lost long ago in Erebor's hoard. For him, this was not war but reclamation of memory. Meanwhile, Bilbo sought refuge in smaller corridors of the mountain. He found Balin alone, hunched against a column, eyes weary. "Do you think he sees it?" Bilbo asked quietly. Balin sighed. "He sees too much and too little. Gold blinds kings faster than darkness blinds miners. Thorin is slipping, and none of us know how to stop him." Bilbo's hand brushed the shape hidden beneath his tunic, the Arkenstone, its faint glow pulsing against his chest. He had not shown it to Thorin, nor confessed its keeping. Some instinct, part fear, part foresight, told him that in Thorin's hands, the stone might not heal but fester. Night fell, and the valley bristled with tension. Bard's campfires burned on the lake's edge, sparks rising like defiance. From the east, elven lanterns glimmered among the trees. Inside Erebor, dwarves hammered shut the gates with iron bars, their clang echoing across the dark. Bilbo lay awake, listening. The mountain no longer sighed. It growled, restless, as if aware that its halls would soon hear not songs of kingship, but the clash of armies. And in that restless murmur, Bilbo heard the truth. This was no longer about treasure. It was about pride, fear, and the fracture of friendships too fragile to bear such weight. The mountain had been won, but the battle for its soul had only just begun. The first snow of winter drifted across the valley, soft as ash. It covered the scars of fire on Lake Town's ruins, cloaked the elven banners in pale light, and dusted the jagged teeth of Erebor's gate. The world looked hushed, but it was the silence before thunder. Inside the mountain, Thorin walked the golden halls as if haunted. His reflection bent and shimmered in coins, each pile a distorted crown mocking him. The Arkenstone's absence gnawed at him like hunger. He had searched, demanded, accused, but the heart of the mountain was gone, and with it his peace. He summoned his company again. His voice, once heavy with weariness, now rang sharp. "Someone among us hides what is mine. The Arkenstone is not lost, it is stolen. And I will have it back." A murmur rippled through the dwarves, discomfort threading loyalty. Dwalin's hand tightened on his axe, Balin's gaze fell, but no one spoke against him. None dared. Bilbo shrank under Thorin's eyes, guilt prickling like thorns. The stone beneath his tunic seemed to burn. He had told himself he kept it for safekeeping, that he would reveal it when Thorin could bear it. But watching the king now, his voice fevered, his shoulders rigid, Bilbo realized that moment might never come. That night, while the dwarves slept, Bilbo slipped through the half-lit corridors. The mountain's air was cold, tasting of iron and dust. He thought of home with every step, the kettle singing, the garden's quiet hum, and wondered if he would live to see it again. He reached the gate where the valley spread beneath the stars. Far below, two camps mirrored one another, the ragged fires of men, the silver glow of elves. And beyond, barely glimpsed in the shifting snow, darker shadows moved, an army, silent and vast. The world was converging on Erebor, and he, a hobbit from the Shire, stood in its center with the one thing that might save or destroy them all. Going somewhere, burglar? Bilbo flinched. A figure stepped from the shadows, Thorin. His eyes gleamed like embers, catching the faint glint of what Bilbo clutched. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The mountain seemed to hold its breath. Bilbo's voice came small but steady. You are not well, Thorin. The gold has its claws in you. If you had the stone now, it would only sink them deeper. Thorin's jaw clenched. You think me mad? That I would betray my kin? This stone is mine by right, by blood, by oath. Hand it over, Bilbo, or you betray me. The hobbit's hands trembled, but he did not yield. I will not give it to you. Not yet. Because you are not Thorin Oakenshield anymore. Not the Thorin who saved me in the trees, or laughed by the fire. This is someone else. The words struck harder than any blade. For a moment, Thorin's fury flickered behind it, something raw, wounded, almost lost. Then it hardened. Go back to your hole, halfling, he hissed. When the armies come, they will see a king who does not bend, who does not break. And when they kneel, it will not be because of mercy, but because they fear me. He turned, his cloak sweeping like a shadow, and vanished into the gold-lit dark. Bilbo's knees weakened. He pressed his back to the stone, the Arkenstone burning against his chest. His friend was gone, or nearly gone, and the armies were almost here. He realized then that the battle ahead would not be for treasure or even survival, it would be for Thorin's soul, and perhaps his own. As dawn bled over the valley, horns rang out. The men of Lake Town and the elves of the woodland realm advanced, their voices rising with demands for aid and restitution. From the mountain, Thorin's dwarves barred the gates, weapons drawn, banners unfurled. And from the east, unseen but near, Azek's legion moved like a tide of shadows, silent, inexorable, unstoppable. The fracture had come. Allies turned uncertain, enemies gathered, and the mountain that once sighed now throbbed like a heart on the edge of rupture. The gates of Erebor stood sealed in iron and stone, black against the pale dawn. Snow glittered on their surface, but no chill in the world was as sharp as the silence between the armies gathered below. On one side, Bard stood tall among his people. They were ragged, barefoot, hollow-eyed from loss, yet their voices rose with determination. Children clung to their mothers, widows gripped knives as though they were swords, and at their center Bard raised his banner, not a crown, but the broken bow that had felled the dragon. Opposite them, Thranduil's host gleamed. Their armor shone like moonlight, their ranks perfect as carved stone. Silent, disciplined, inevitable. And above them, the woodland king himself sat astride his great elk, eyes cold as winter glass. Between these camps lay only wind and the weight of unspoken war. Then Thranduil's voice cut across the field, smooth and clear. Thorin Oakenshield. You sit in a hall not yet earned. The jewels of my people lie in your hoard. Return them, and peace may yet live. Bard stepped forward, his tone raw but resolute. And my people burned with their homes. We ask not for jewels, but for recompense, shelter, food, aid. You owe us that much, Thorin. Without us, you would not live to call yourself king. The mountain answered not with Thorin's voice, but with a drumbeat. Dwarves lined the battlements, their axes catching the light. And then, Thorin himself appeared upon the wall. His crown of gold sat heavy on his brow, his eyes darker than shadow. "You speak of peace," he called down, "yet you march upon me with armies. You demand what is mine, yet offer nothing in return. I owe you nothing, nothing but the sight of a king unbroken." Murmurs rippled through the valley, disbelief mixing with anger. Bard's face hardened, but he raised his hands, trying to stem the storm. "Do not bring ruin upon us all, Thorin. Look at your people. Are you so blinded that you will see only enemies where once were allies?" Thorin's gaze flicked over them, unyielding. "Allies?" His voice dropped, colder than the snow. "Allies vanish when fortune falters. True kin remain. And I will protect mine against all who come man, elf, or beast." At his signal, the dwarves drew their bows. The valley seemed to hold its breath, every soldier, every widow, every child frozen between the pull of strings and the release of chaos. And in that breath, Bilbo made his choice. He had listened, watched, waited, praying for Thorin to soften, for reason to return. But now, with armies trembling on the edge of slaughter, he knew there was only one path left. His small figure slipped from the shadows of the gate, stepping onto the snow. Gasps followed him, a hobbit between nations, a lone thread between blades. "Wait." His voice cracked, but it carried. "Please listen." He held something in his hands. It gleamed even beneath the gray sky, light swirling within like captured dawn. The Arkenstone. Thranduil's eyes narrowed, Bard's breath caught. A murmur rippled through the soldiers on both sides, as though the mountain itself had exhaled. Bilbo's voice shook but did not falter. This is what you seek. The heart of the mountain. Thorin calls it his right, his crown, his destiny. But I say it is a weight too heavy for one man alone. I give it to you, Bard. To you, Thranduil. Not as a thief, but as a friend who will not see blood spilled for gold. From the wall, Thorin's roar shattered the stillness. Betrayal. His voice broke like thunder. His kin recoiled, torn between loyalty and doubt, while his fury burned brighter than dragon fire. Bilbo looked up at him, tears cutting cold lines on his cheeks. I did this because I love you, Thorin. Because you are my friend. And I will not watch that friendship die beneath stone and pride. The army stirred, hearts divided, the storm ready to break. The Arkenstone burned between Bilbo's hands, the weight of salvation and doom alike. And as the first horns of a darker army sounded on the horizon, no one knew whether the next heartbeat would bring peace or ruin. The first horn blast split the air like lightning. It did not come from elf or man, nor from the mountain, but from the east, deep, guttural, endless. Shadows spilled across the horizon, moving as one tide. Spears rose like forests, banners of white handprints billowed, and the ground itself seemed to crawl with iron and fury. Azog's army had arrived. The fragile tension at Erebor's gate shattered. Bard's men turned, horror flashing in their eyes. Elves raised their bows, their perfect ranks breaking into urgency. From the battlements, dwarves cried out in alarm, the certainty of pride quaking into fear. But Thorin stood unmoving. His crown glinted, his jaw set, his gaze fixed on the Arkenstone glowing in Bilbo's hands. Even with death descending, his eyes saw only betrayal. "Do you see what you've done?" he thundered, voice raw. "You've delivered the heart of my kingdom to my enemies. You are no friend. You are nothing." Bilbo's chest heaved. "Look," he pleaded, pointing to the black tide rolling toward them. "This is the enemy, Thorin. Not me, not them. If you cannot see it, then the gold has already buried you alive." For a heartbeat, silence. Then Dwalin stepped forward, his face grim. "Thor, enough. We've fought too long beside you to watch you fall to madness. The world is burning, and you'd rather fight shadows than foes. This is not the king we followed." Thorin's hands trembled on the stone of the wall. Fury warred with grief, paranoia with memory. He saw Bilbo's small form below, stubborn and true, and Dwalin's scarred face beside him, both carved from loyalty, both turned against him. The mountain groaned beneath his feet. And something in him broke. Arrows sang, blades rang, screams tore the frozen air. Snow turned black with blood, white with bone. Amidst it, Thorin led the charge, his axe carving arcs of steel and fury. He fought not for gold, but for kin, for land, for the redemption he had nearly lost. Bilbo darted through the chaos, small and unnoticed, saving who he could, pulling the wounded from underfoot. Fear gnawed him, but he refused to turn away. He had come too far, loved too deeply, to abandon this end. High upon the ridge, Azog himself advanced, pale and immense, his eyes locked on Thorin. Every step was thunder, every breath a promise of death. The battlefield parted around them as if the earth itself recognized the weight of their meeting. Thorin climbed the rocks, each stride heavy, defiant, unstoppable. He turned once, catching Bilbo's gaze below. For the first time in weeks, the faintest shadow of a smile touched his lips. Not of triumph, but of release. Then he faced Azog. The clash shook the mountainside. Steel against steel, fury against fury. The king who had nearly lost himself to gold now hurled himself against the abyss, every blow a confession, every wound a penance. Bilbo cried out from below, his voice swallowed by the roar of war. He knew, even before the first blood fell, that this was not a battle Thorin would survive. And yet, for the first time, Thorin fought as a king. The battlefield had fallen into ruin. Smoke coiled over the snow, stained black and red. The cries of the dying ebbed into moans, then into silence, broken only by the crackle of fire and the cawing of crows. The mountain loomed above, its crown of ice catching the faint light of dawn, but its shadow lay heavy over all. Bilbo stumbled through the wreckage. His clothes were torn, his hands raw, his face streaked with blood not his own. He had searched through heaps of bodies, through the shattered lines of elf and man and dwarf alike, calling Thorin's name until his throat bled. At last, he found him. Thorin lay upon the cold stone of a ridge, his axe fallen, his crown shattered near his hand. His breath rattled shallow in his chest, each one a battle harder than any fought with steel. Azog lay slain a few paces away, pale eyes blank, the monster stilled at last. But the victory tasted like ash. Bilbo dropped to his knees, pressing his small hands against Thorin's. They were cold, trembling faintly. "You fool," Bilbo whispered, tears streaking clean paths through the grime on his face. "You brave, stubborn fool. You should have stayed with us. You should have come home." Thorin's eyes fluttered open, blue dimmed but not extinguished. For a moment, the madness was gone, leaving only the man Bilbo had once followed through rain and fire. He smiled faintly, cracked lips forming words that shook with both pain and clarity. "Home," he rasped. "I thought it was here. In stone, in gold. But I see now, home is where hearts rest. And mine rested with you, my burglar, more than I knew." Bilbo shook his head fiercely, clutching his hand. Don't you leave now. We've come too far." "I can't," his voice broke. "I can't go back without you." Thorin's thumb brushed weakly across his knuckles, a ghost of comfort. "You must. Go back to your shire. Plant your gardens. Fill your house with laughter. Let no gold blind you to the warmth of simple things. Promise me, Bilbo." "I promise," the hobbit choked out, though the word tore him apart. Thorin's chest rose once, fell, and then stilled. The last warmth of him lingered in Bilbo's hands before fading like a candle's flame. The world seemed to tilt, the mountain groaning, the sky bleeding pale fire. Bilbo bowed his head to Thorin's chest, sobs racking his small frame. Around them, the survivors moved slowly, carrying their dead, binding their wounds, but for Bilbo there was only that still body, that silence heavier than any gold. Bard approached, bloodied but unbroken, laying a hand on Bilbo's shoulder. "He died a king," he said quietly. Bilbo shook his head. "He died my friend." The funeral was held in the heart of the mountain. Dwarves lined the chamber, their voices low and rough, echoing off gold that seemed duller now, dimmed by grief. Thorin Oakenshield was laid upon a bier of stone, his sword beside him, his crown at his feet. Beside him, his kin, Fili and Kili, lay also, the line of Durin broken, but their honor sealed forever. Bilbo stood apart, his small frame lost among the pillars. He could not speak. Words seemed too fragile to hold the weight of what he felt. Instead, he pressed his hand once more to the Arkenstone, now resting upon Thorin's chest. Its glow shimmered faintly, not as treasure, but as a heartbeat remembered. When it was over, Bilbo slipped away. He walked alone through the silent halls, through gates no longer barred, across fields scarred by war. His pack felt heavy, though it carried almost nothing. His heart heavier still. At the edge of the valley, he paused and looked back. Erebor rose against the sky, both tomb and triumph, its stones echoing with songs of grief. He whispered softly, as if to the wind, "Goodbye, Thorin. I will remember." And then he turned toward the road that wound west, toward hills green and quiet, toward a little round door under a hill. The mountain sighed once more, but this time it was not a sound of greed or shadow. It was the sound of rest, as if the stones themselves bowed in farewell.